TreVeyon Henderson is going to help you win your dynasty leagues. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Michael Fabiano. And on today's show, we're taking a look at a handful of young stars who are maybe quiet in the first half of the season. They're going to help you win your fantasy leagues in 2025. We're going to look at some rookie running backs, some young receivers that we're really excited about. And at the end of the show, we're going to take a look at some tight ends who have some maybe some nice appeal as low-end tight end ones. But let's get into the running backs. And I want to start with TreVeyon Henderson. He had a huge game on Sunday against the Buccaneers. They play the Jets tonight. Is this the start of a magical run for Henderson?
I hope so. And it's taken a while, but I guess better late than never. But if you look at the way that things are trending, right, he's played 51 snaps in each of his last 2 games, 33 touches in those games, nearly 240 scrimmage yards, a pair of touchdowns, over 40 fantasy points. Ramondre Stevenson has already been declared out for the game tonight against the Jets. So this gives Henderson another chance to prove that he's the best running back in New England. And while I still have a little bit of concern that Mike Vrabel will go back to Ramondre Stevenson once Stevenson is healthy, if Henderson can have another game tonight like he had last week, maybe he forces Vrabel's hand and he's got to use him because early in the season, even to the midway point, we were like, what in the heck is going on? You know, Antonio Gibson gets hurt. Oh, here comes Henderson. Nope. It was Ramondre Stevenson. And then even in that first game, you know, they used Terrell Jennings and we're like, what is going on? Like, just give Henderson the ball like 20 times a game. What's the deal? And so finally now we've seen him sort of bust out a little bit. And last week he had this 2 big runs, very explosive runs, one for a touchdown. So I'd love to see him have another big stat line tonight. Remember the Jets, no more Quentin Williams because he is now a member of our beloved, but just frustrating Dallas Cowboys. So the Jets aren't going to be as good against the run, obviously. So if Henderson goes out there and has another big game, then hopefully we're not having to worry about Ramondre Stevenson as much being the starter moving forward, and it's Henderson's job, and you could start him every week with confidence, which is kind of what we were hoping from weeks 1 to 8.
It's not all that uncommon for like a highly touted, you know, day 2 running back to take a while to get going. I mean, the first example that pops into my mind, Fabs, is I'm sure you remember Nick Chubb as a rookie, right? Playing behind Carlos Hyde and who I can't remember the other running back that he was playing behind, but it took until week 7 until he got more than 3 carries in a game. But from week 7 on, he was an RB1 and he was absolutely fantastic. Now we're a little bit later in the season than that, but it's just an example of sometimes these coaches can slow play these guys and they're trying to save them for a second half run. And I think Henderson's a perfect example. They've got a bunch of games coming up in a short amount of time. This is clearly a playoff team. I think they're going to want to make sure that Henderson's getting plenty of burn as we inch closer to the playoffs. So this is a great call.
Yeah, again, Ramondre Stevenson had really, if you think about it, had done everything he possibly could to lose that job earlier on in the season. You know, he had fumbles, inconsistency, and maybe, you know, that was Vrabel's game plan all along, is to wait. We are impatient in the fantasy world. We don't like that kind of thing. But again, better late than never.
All right, let's, real quick, before we move on to RJ Harvey, we're going to talk about him a little bit. How aggressive would you be going to get Henderson in your dynasty leagues? Because obviously the price today is far more expensive than it was a week ago. But are you still buying relatively low if he's going to continue to put up some of these big games? Because, I mean, there's been plenty of running backs. Look at Nick Chubb. If you would have bought him off that one game where he had like 3 carries for 98 yards and 2 touchdowns, it would have felt like you're buying him at his all-time peak. But in fact, you weren't. So is this the time to buy him?
I think the time to buy him was probably 3 to 5 weeks ago when we were all frustrated that Ramondre Stevenson continued to be the guy there in New England. And so now, I mean, even at his lowest point, Marcus, I still can't see anybody getting TreVeyon Henderson for less than a first-round pick. Maybe a second and a good player, but now
highly doubt it.
Not now. It's not going to happen now. You would have to flip a first rounder for him, and I don't even know that the fantasy manager who has him would even want a first round pick in return for TreVeyon Henderson. I think most people are probably sticking with him at this point.
So I've got a couple of trades that I wanted to run through just to kind of get your thoughts. So TreVeyon Henderson for Saquon Barkley and Kareem Hunt.
I'd rather have Henderson unless I was the team that had championship aspirations and needed Barkley for the stretch run. I'd still obviously rather have Henderson.
Okay. Jonathan Taylor and Rashid Shaheed for TreVeyon Henderson and Travis Hunter.
I am not trading Jonathan Taylor. No. Unless you're offering me Bijan or Jahmyr Gibbs, I am not trading Jonathan Taylor. That would be basically like cutting off your nose to spite your face. That would be a foolish move.
Okay. One more trade that I wanted to run through here. It's TreVeyon Henderson for Ricky Pearsall and a 2026 first-round pick.
Yeah, I would do that. I would like to get the Henderson side of that. As good as Pearsall can be, brother, he is just not durable at all. He is not durable at all. It's not a bad trade. It's not a bad trade because you throw the first-round pick in there, but Pearsall really disappointed me this season. Hopefully he's going to be coming back here shortly. He was limited in practice on Wednesday, but man, this was the reason why some folks in the industry, including myself, were worried about him because the talent's there. But Elliot Harrison always used to say when we were together on NFL Network, your best ability is availability, and his availability has not been there for most of this year.
All right, let's talk about RJ Harvey, the Broncos now starting running back. Still no official news on J.K. Dobbins, which honestly, Fabs, to me, that means the news is not good and they're trying to figure out anything else, right? So RJ Harvey is going to start probably at least for the next 5 or 6 weeks. What's his dynasty value, though? What's the short term look like? How are you evaluating the situation?
Well, you look at volume, and you would think that the volume is now going to be there. Who do they have behind him? Tyler Batty. I like to call him Batty, but maybe it's Beatty. I don't even know.
It's Batty. No, you're right.
Batty. I like Batty's more fun to say anyways. And Jaleel McLaughlin. I mean, that's it. So Harvey's going to be that dude. And, we did see some flashes over the last month or so, that one game with multiple touchdowns. Most of it was as a pass catcher, but now he's going to have an opportunity to, be pretty close to a featured back. I would certainly think that he won't be getting 25 touches a game, but can we get, 15 to 17? Yeah, absolutely. Every single week moving forward. And in that offense, yeah, this is big. I mean, this is not a good matchup like this week against Kansas City, but I don't care. I'm playing them because the volume is going to be there. And that's, when you talk about matchup versus volume, I talk about that in Stardom and Sit 'em over at Sports Illustrated here on Fridays all the time. Sometimes you throw the matchup out the window because the volume is going to be there. And the volume is going to be there for Harvey this weekend in a huge game in the AFC West against Kansas City. So, and then when you look at it long-term, J.K. Dobbins, this is a chance for RJ Harvey to cement himself as the guy moving forward, because the Broncos brought in J.K. Dobbins because maybe they didn't think Harvey was ready to be a featured back. Now Harvey's got a shot to say, hey guys, look what I've done over the last 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season, whatever it is, however long Dobbins is going to be out. And then the Broncos have that confidence in him moving forward where they don't go out and add someone who's going to take significant touches away from him moving forward. So this is a very big month plus for RJ Harvey's dynasty value. If he goes out there and performs, good news. If he's out there struggling, maybe not so much.
One of the things that I'm seeing right now on Dynasty League football is that RJ Harvey is somebody that people are aggressively trading for. And I'll tell you, one of the trades from this morning, actually, Fabs, RJ Harvey for Bashal Tutin, Trey Tucker, who we'll talk about, and a 2026 first-round pick. Now, I think all of us would rather have the first-round pick, but
yes,
that's one example of somebody being aggressive. Another
Very
one,
aggressive.
RJ Harvey and Jake Ferguson for Quinshon Judkins and Mason Taylor.
Yeah, see, you know me, I love Judkins, man.
We take the Judkins side as well. I'm going to give you
I'm a
another one.
big fan, yeah.
And this one's, I got to believe, more short term, but RJ Harvey, a 3rd-round pick in next year's draft for Javonte Williams.
Yeah, that's a move that somebody's trying to make in order to win now. But
right now,
I got to be honest with you. You know, I mean, you and I are both, struggling, frustrated Cowboys fans. But why the hell would the Cowboys not bring Javonte Williams back next season? It's not going to cost
probably
you a lot
because
of money.
they could feel like they could replace him with somebody that's cheaper, like they did last year with Rico Dowdle.
But I mean, how much can Javonte Williams actually cost?
Probably
He's had
not a lot.
one good year. That's
not a lot.
it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, unless they want to go out and use, one of their draft picks on a running back, I can see that. But the problem is that, Javonte for the rest of the season, can help you. Moving forward, where's he going to land? Not sure.
All right, let's talk about some rookie receivers that we're really excited about in the second half of the year, because generally it's about week 9, week 10 that these rookie receivers start to come into their own. We'll tell you who you should be trying to go out and acquire next. This episode is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. And if you need parts fast for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. It's an absolute game changer. I know for me, I don't want to wait around for parts when I'm doing projects, and that's where Supply House comes into the clutch. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both. There has never been a better time to jump in on the action. And if you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere that Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I love that I can pick my favorite players like, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Luka Doncic, to see how my predictions play out. Plus, the new stacks feature is a game changer. You can pick more on Luka's threes, points, and assists, all in the same lineup. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We'd also like to thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Fabs, let's talk about some rookie receivers, because generally, or in this case, historically, because you love history, so do I, most of these rookie receivers really start to break out in the second half of the year. That's when they start becoming full-time starters. They know the route tree. They know the offense. Who are some young receivers that you're looking towards to have big second halves of the season?
Yeah, so, I'll start off with Tez Johnson, who's now playing starter snaps. And he was in my wide receiver streamers article over on Sports Illustrated last week, and he had a huge game, over 20 fantasy points, a couple of touchdowns. We don't know when Chris Godwin's coming back. I don't think it's going to be this week, obviously, and, who knows. And then, Jalen McMillan's still in a neck brace. So, that dude is nowhere near playing football. So Tez Johnson is a guy that obviously Baker Mayfield trusts. And, he's not the first name you think of when you think of the rookie wide receivers or young wide receivers, but he's done fairly well over the last few weeks. And he is definitely a guy that you can plug into your lineup where needed. And wide receiver has been a tough position. This season we've seen a lot of injuries. We've seen some players who haven't performed up to snuff, like Brian Thomas Jr., and he's kind of both because he's now hurt as well. So Tez Johnson has been useful. I've picked up Tez Johnson in a few of my leagues, including a couple of high stakes leagues, and he has really done right by me. So, and until Chris Godwin comes back, Tez is a guy that I could keep in my lineup, and I feel pretty good about it.
I got a really tough question to ask you about Chris Godwin and Tez Johnson. Doesn't matter if Chris Godwin comes back.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
because
sure it does.
Part of me just thinks that Tampa Bay's offense, maybe it's not as consistent because you are playing a 7th-round rookie, but it's so much more explosive and it's so much faster. And I think my concern would be that, if Mike Evans comes back for the playoffs, Chris Godwin comes back for the playoffs, this offense just grinds down and it becomes very slow. I'm not sure that's the way that Baker Mayfield should be playing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Godwin, who knows if he does come back, when he does come back, what percentage of Chris Godwin will we get? Because early in the season, we weren't getting much. And who knows? I mean, maybe this thing is just at risk for re-injury over and over and over again. And we're not going to have the same Chris Godwin that we had. I mean, heck, in the first half of last year, he was legitimately like one of the best wide receivers in fantasy football, gets hurt, and then everything just goes sideways for him. So Tez Johnson is a guy that needs to be in lineups where needed. And again, I've been playing him for a few weeks now, and I have no complaints. And, the same thing goes for a guy like Troy Franklin. 37 targets in the last 4 games. You know who has fewer targets? Cortland Sutton. 12 plus points in 3 of his last 4. He's playing plenty of snaps. He's running plenty of routes. Bo Nix and Franklin have that rapport from, back in their Oregon Duck days. And I'm not saying that Franklin's going to be the better fantasy wide receiver rest of season when you compare him to Cortland Sutton, but he's going to be right there. I don't particularly love the matchup this week against Kansas City, but Troy Franklin helped me a lot. I mean, in that stink bomb last week on Thursday night, he was like one of the only dudes that did anything. He had a decent game. He's not going to put up massive numbers, but you also got to think about it. When you've got players that you're plugging into your lineup like that, 12 to 14, 15 points, that's a win. Like that is a win for guys like Troy Franklin. And he's been doing it on the reg over the last month or so.
One guy that I'm looking to acquire, and again, I'm kind of doubling down for my pre-draft evaluation, and maybe that's the wrong move here. I don't know, but Luther Burden is somebody who is starting. I mean, he had a good game against the Giants, 3 catches, 51 yards. Perhaps he's catching 89% of his targets this year. 89. Zacchaeus, who has been their primary slot receiver, he's one of the most inefficient receivers in the league. And at some point, Chicago is just going to turn this thing to Burden, turn it over to Burden in the slot. We know that Ben Johnson loves explosive plays, and that's what Luther Burden can do. I think he's got the highest passer rating in the NFL when targeted. He had a concussion, and I think it was in week 9 where he missed most of that game. He's had some big weeks. I just wouldn't be surprised if it's somebody, in the second half of the year, we're getting more of these 4 for 55, 3 for 75 type of games. I think now is the time to go in and buy.
Yeah, because the value is not, outside of him just being a youthful guy, right? Being a rookie. Yeah. I mean, he hasn't really done much statistically.
Wide receiver 40 right now on Dynasty League football.
But moving forward, you've got to how long are we going to see DJ Moore in a prominent role in Chicago? I mean, he's already kind of fallen out of one.
Doesn't it feel like this is probably the last year with DJ Moore? That Chicago, it just feels like Chicago is going to be able to trade him this offseason and get some decent capital and just move forward with Rome and Burden and Loveland as their top 3 options. Yeah.
So Burden's a guy that I would certainly be trying to get right now. A player that I like for the rest of this season, not a rookie, but Trey Tucker. And Trey Tucker is now the de facto number 1 wide receiver in Las Vegas because Jacoby Myers got traded to Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. And Tucker has scored double digits 4 times this year. He had that massive 40.9 point per game. I think it was back in like week 3. And guess who he gets this week? Oh, the Dallas Cowboys. Trey Tucker is going to be in a lot of lineups this week, folks. He's one of my favorite streamers of the week. Why? Because he's playing against Dallas. And hell, I could see Geno Smith throwing for 3 touchdowns on Monday night, which is crazy because Geno Smith is not playing well, but the Cowboys defense stinks. Their pass defense is terrible. So Trey Tucker is a player that I'm not saying he's going to go out there and score 15 a week for the rest of the season, but when the matchup's right, the targets will be there. Like last week, the matchup wasn't right. It was Denver. Denver's defense is wicked good, as we like to say in Connecticut. But this week, it's wicked bad that defense that Dallas has. So Tucker's going to be able to help you here. And remember, I mean, we're still not done with the bye weeks. We still, I don't know that we had another bye Mageddon. I think there was only one this year, but I have to go back and check to make sure. But he's still a guy that can fill in for you. And if you're looking at volume, who is the two behind Brock Bowers in that offense in the passing game? It's Trey Tucker.
I can't believe you think the Cowboys are going to hold Geno only to 3 touchdowns this week. You have a lot
more
faith in their
defense. Was I being
too
conservative there?
Maybe. I'm going to give you one more. This is how you win in dynasty leagues. I think Alec Pierce is a great guy to acquire now. I know the numbers are a little bit up and down, and I don't know if he's somebody that you're going to feel comfortable starting every week. He's a good flex option if you have a bunch of wide receiver injuries. Like I've got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Garrett Wilson in a league. Neither of those guys are playing this week. So someone like Alec Pierce, who I know they're
off this week. Yeah.
But in general, but there was a really good article from Jeremy Fowler at ESPN that said that Alec Pierce is likely to be the highest paid free agent receiver on the open market next year and could command upwards of $20 million a year. I think if you can get him now before he gets paid and gets that money, because some team is going to want to get him to be their number one outside receiver. And I keep thinking Buffalo. Like Buffalo is a perfect spot for him. Like he's basically better Gabe Davis when Gabe Davis was good, right? I think if you trade for Pierce now and if you wait to the offseason, you're only going to see his dynasty value go up.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And, the Colts already traded away AD Mitchell. So, I mean, not that there was competition there, but in the future, if he sticks with, Indianapolis, he's still going to be, the 2 behind Michael Pittman. And I don't know if the Colts are going to want to part ways with Pierce, especially after the way that he's been playing lately. He's been very, very good.
They might not have a choice. If he's going to command $20 million a year, they might not have a choice.
Yep. And then going back to just real quick, because I want to make sure that you guys are well informed. No more bye Mageddons. There's 2 more weeks with buys, and there's 4 teams off in 12 and 14. There's no bye week in week 13. So just keep that in mind. I still hate that week 14 bye week because it's like the week before the fantasy playoffs start, and then you lose guys when you're potentially looking to break into the postseason. Just real quick, another wide receiver that we have to talk about is Parker Washington, who has played 123 combined snaps in the last 2 games. He's had 11 catches for 123 yards. He scored nearly 35 combined fantasy points. Travis Hunter's out for the season. Brian Thomas Jr., I don't know when he's coming back. He was limited in practice on Wednesday. I don't know when he's coming back. But one thing we know for sure is that Trevor Lawrence likes Parker Washington. Now, at some point, and Brenton Strange was actually able to put in a limited practice as well yesterday. At some point when the Jaguars get whole, and they're not going to be completely whole because Travis Hunter's out for the season, I think Parker Washington is still going to be a part of that offense and a guy that at the very worst should be on your bench as a bye week or injury replacement.
All right, let's talk about some tight ends that we think could help you win in the second half of your fantasy football seasons. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. As the days get shorter and the nights come earlier, it can start to feel a little heavier, especially when life is already packed with work, family, and everything else. And this season, it's important to reach out and check in with friends, family, and even yourself. Just checking in on a teammate or reconnecting with someone that you haven't seen in a long time can lift your spirits, and reaching out for therapy can make a real difference too. BetterHelp makes that first step easier by connecting you with a licensed therapist online from wherever you are. I've noticed for me, like just talking things through, even for just a couple minutes, whether it's on the phone with a therapist, with whoever, can help me clear my head and help get me back on track. I've got a couple friends that call me every single day when I'm out walking. It's fantastic. And that always makes me feel better and re-energized. So this month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it simple to take that first step. And our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn, because taking that step towards support might just have you wondering, why didn't I do this sooner? Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Podcast. 2 shows every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's talk about some young tight ends, Fabs, because this is a position historically where it's hard to break through, right? It's usually the top 7-8 guys dominate the top 10 spots for like 3 or 4 years, and it's very hard to have like late season breakouts. But who are a couple guys that you think could potentially do that?
Theo Johnson's already in the midst of a breakout.
Yeah.
I don't think we talk about this kid enough. Like, he scored double digits in 5 of his last 7 games. If you think double digits from a tight end, you're doing pretty well. He's had at least 6 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. Since week 4, he's the 5th best tight end in fantasy football. Now, you have to factor in bye weeks. So let's look at the points per game average, 10th. 9 tight ends, including Brock Bowers, who has only played a few games and he had that bananas 40-point game, are ahead of him. He's been very good. And thank God the Giants are going to Jameis Winston, because if Russell Wilson was going to be the quarterback, I would be like, damn, I can't play Theo anymore. I could play Theo with Jameis Winston, even if the Giants are losing games, because I know Jameis is throwing the football. So I feel good about him. I feel good about Wendell Robinson as well. But Theo Johnson is under the radar, been pretty consistent. Like, when you compare him to like other tight ends who have bigger names, like TJ Hawkinson and, Mark Andrews, I think Mark Andrews is turning things around now and his schedule's bananas good the rest of the season. Theo Johnson's been better than those guys. And so when you look at a starting lineup and you're not really thrilled with your tight end, like Theo Johnson's still floating around there on the waiver wire in some redrafts. And in Dynasty, like, he legitimately is a week in and week out starter if you don't have a top dude. And, this is a guy who's very young. And so moving forward, we already know what Jackson Dart loves him. Mm-hmm. Most of Johnson's successes come with Dart under center. And that's going to be a combo moving forward. I mean, obviously Malik Neighbors will be back. And so you're going to see a lot of Malik Neighbors, and he's going to lead the team in targets. But Jackson Dart's going to remember that Theo Johnson is a guy that he knows he can trust, and he's going to target. So Theo Johnson is one of those players. And then the second one is, I don't know how much of an impact he's going to make the rest of this season, but I would not be surprised if he popped this week. And that's Terrance Ferguson. And I know you like Terrance Ferguson. I've got Ferguson in one of my dynasty leagues. And he is, now the numbers are not been great. 4 catches for 117 yards and a touchdown since week 7, but he's playing at least 30% of the snaps in each of his last 4 games. And all of his 5 catches for the year have gone for at least 18 yards. And if you listen to Sean McVay's podcast earlier in the week, he said, and I quote, "How dumb am I not to figure out ways to get this guy involved?" So Ferguson, dynasty-wise, I love him moving forward because, Tyler Higbee's still on the roster. He's not going to be there next season. Cody Parkinson's okay, but I mean, he's not going to be a guy that's going to usurp Ferguson. I love Ferguson long-term. I think if you're in a dynasty league and you want to try to buy low on him, I would do that right now. But I would not be surprised. Seattle's not good against tight ends. I would not be surprised if Ferguson or one of the Rams tight ends this week is an actual viable streamer if you're really desperate. And when you look at like the snaps played and the routes run and that kind of stuff, like Ferguson's right there over the last few weeks with the other tight ends on that roster.
I'm so
Go
mad.
ahead. Now,
no, you stole my guy. That's fine. I love that call, by the way, because the thing that's most encouraging is, the production hasn't necessarily been there yet. He's been catching some big passes, and it's been about 1 a game, but he's just starting to see the field more, right? He's playing 25, 30 snaps a game, and Sean McVay is openly telling us, I got to find ways to get this guy on the field more and get him the ball. So, like you said, I don't know if it happens this year, but I would bet by next year with, Devontae Adams being another year older, with Tyler Higbee probably out of the picture, that's a guy that you want to go out and get. I'll give you one more, and this is not a big name at all. This guy has 8 catches on the year, so bear with me.
Go ahead.
Jackson Hawes of the Buffalo Bills. He's already been playing a bunch of snaps. He's hit at least 29 snaps in each of the last 5 games. He is PFF's number 1 graded blocking tight end. Now, you don't get points for blocking, right, in fantasy leagues. If you do, let me know. That'd be an awesome league to play in. But with Dalton Kincaid out for the next couple of weeks with a hamstring injury, and with Buffalo's wide receiver core being as banged up as it is, I just won't be surprised if Hawes, who is a rookie tight end, 24, continues to get more and more work. He's caught at least one pass in every single game. He scored a touchdown last week. He's somebody, because of the traits, because he's going to be on the field a bunch on an offense that we think is going to be really good, I'm at least monitoring going forward.
And I think he's probably available in some dynasty leagues too. I know I know he's available in mine.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.